I want to thank you all for coming to help celebrate my mom's life. I've never been really fond of that celebration of life thing. You know, it kind of seems like a dodge around the fact that someone just died. And it's lines like that, or she's 107 years young, God bless her, always trying to test my patience. Fortunately, I have a wife who has no patience with my lack of patience. One of the great things about being married to a Disney character is a continuing reminder that life is a wonderful thing. It's a fact to be recognized and appreciated on an ongoing basis. So with that gentle reminder and her direct order to get up there and celebrate your mother's life this instant, don't give me that look, that's what I'm going to do. So what is there really to celebrate? My mother never really went anywhere, had any big dreams, big plans, did anything for the history books. She was one of 4 kids born to Italian immigrants. One night when she was 17, she was at a party when they started playing Spin the Bottle. Some tall country type slick from southern Illinois gave it a spin. When it came to rest pointing at Mom, he summoned up his courage, said, "I don't know who you be, but here goes," and planted one on this girl he'd never met before.
Wow.
You can probably tell by the smooth repartee that the tall stranger was one Monroe Harris.
Tiny.
Harris men are known for our smoldering charm and our witty dialogue when it comes to women. No, seriously, we are. Stacy? Well, we are. After that, my dad went all out trying to find that Italian girl he kissed at the party, though he knew little more than her name. He was prepared to search Illinois for her, like a backwoods Prince Charming, no matter how long it took. Didn't actually take that long, though. It turned out that one of his best friends was going out with her sister. Before long, they were married. So were his friend and his mom's sister. What are the odds? So that's a pretty fine romantic tale. That's something to celebrate. A few years later, found him with 2 kids on a hard-scrabble farmette in Lockport, Illinois. Pretty much dirt poor with dirt floors to match. And these were rough times. You can see old pictures where my brother Jim is actually wearing hand-me-down army fatigues from Uncle Don. Dad would have to drive to the city and back, working long hours trying to make ends meet. Mom, in the meantime, basically ran a farm. She handled chickens, ducks, a couple goats, and a pig, Kilroy, which was so devoted to her that it followed her around all the time, oinking under its breath. She missed it terribly after its little piggy life came to a close, although she did say it was the best bacon they'd ever had. She learned to raise vegetables and bake bread. She painted the house, ushered chickens into their next tasty plane of existence, and everything else associated with running a farm. It was hard work during hard times with precious little to show for it at the end of the day. They were also the years that she and Dad would always look back on as their best. Their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren were raised on stories and recipes from Lockport. Mom was basically a small-scale rancher, farmer, and home remodeler. So that's something worth celebrating. Now, after I was born, of course, the sun came out and good times reigned supreme. They left Lockport for Chicago and eventually Harlem Avenue. As Dad built a business, she took over the paperwork side of things. She handled scheduling, kept the books, did the taxes, and forced Dad to charge what he was actually worth. He was always surprised when he got it. She never was. Customers and suppliers she dealt with came to recognize Mom as a pretty savvy businesswoman. That's something worth celebrating. These are the times I remember best, and are therefore, of course, the most important. These were the years of growing up with cousins, spending holidays at our house or at their houses, sitting in the kitchen listening to Mom, Aunt Katie, and Grandma laughing uproariously, switching to Italian now and then so we wouldn't be able to follow it. I'm recording it all on Mom's new high-tech 80-pound reel-to-reel tape recorder. We still have those recordings, so we can hear Grandpa singing, Grandma mocking Grandpa for singing, Mom and Aunt Katie having maybe a little sip or 2 of Mogan David, or 3. These are wonderful memories we have because Mom was apparently an early technology adopter. So that's something worth celebrating. While we were growing up, Mom was always at home. When we came home for lunch, it was fresh and hot. When we took lunch to school, it was something wonderful that could be traded up for more than any other lunch the kids' lunches could. Those poor saps with their homemade bologna on white, they'd never seen a stuffed artichoke or a pepper and egg sandwich. I had friends that would go to great lengths in order to happen to be around over at our house when dinner time came. Now we can all cook. That's something that's pretty much in our genes, along with the Romano face and type 2 diabetes. Mom, however, was the cook. Some of you are following those recipes today. Everyone has memories of those meals and certain favorite recipes or cookies. She was happy to know that her recipe files had ultimately been scanned electronically and published out for all to see. So that's also something worth celebrating. As long as you all know when to stop. Don't just keep eating and eating until, out of hell with it. You start the diet on Monday, this time for sure. She raised 4 children. We all came out pretty well. Actually, some of us are just amazing, but that's a story for another eulogy. My brothers and sister and I, and the grandkids, nieces, and nephews she helped raise later, all felt pretty secure in the knowledge that we were the treasured center of someone's universe. At night, she'd sing us songs before bed. She had books of stories and fairy tales that she would read to us, and after each story was read, she would write in the margins the date and to whom she'd read the stories. Those books have the names of 3 generations of children. That's a lot of stories told to a lot of children who took with them into their lives the value of telling stories. That too is something to celebrate. And there's something else, something Stacy always points out from her vantage of coming into our family. That's probably one of the most important gifts she gave us. We didn't think of it as a gift at the time, it's just how we were raised. We always laughed, often until we couldn't breathe. There was always something to laugh about, and it was never mean-spirited or sarcastic. That's something I brought to the table later on, along with an irony that nobody picked up on and little asides muttered under my breath. Even in her final years at the nursing home, when the doctor would talk to her and ask her about her mood, trying to see if she was depressed or anything, she'd always take it as a kind of an idiotic question. You have good days and you have bad days, she'd say. Dwelling on the bad never seemed to help. You might as well try to be happy. That seemed pretty obvious and straightforward, but as Stacy reminds me, it's not always obvious to everyone. Given the choice, Mom preferred to laugh. For those days when she needed it, she had a secret weapon, the laugh box. In this little box, she stored cartoons, stories, letters, anything she found funny against a time of need. Things like Grandpa's letter to Commonwealth Edison. This is the one that's asking, please make the next bill not so big. It was stamped returned to sender because he'd used the Fruit of the Loom underwear sticker on it. Stacy loved to go through that box with Mom, and Mom loved how it made her laugh. So she entrusted the box into Stacy's keeping some years ago, and we'd take it to the nursing home now and then and read the contents aloud to her. Though she knew them by heart, there was always something special about reading them together as a family, reciting everything back and forth, call and response, just like at the church. It was sort of like a sacrament. At home now, Stacy and I still take it out occasionally, and occasionally we add something to it. It's a very healthy thing to do and definitely something to celebrate. Finally, there's something I want to refer to as hospitality. So to the outside observer, it just probably appears to be the Romano habit of trying to stuff food into anything or anyone within reach. This is how we express concern and caring. That's right, Kathy. It's something else that has always confounded Stacy as it goes beyond the mere need to always have something to offer company. For one, I recognize these compulsions in myself. I'm Dennis Harris, I'm a Romano. I can do little to stop myself. I can't. If someone feels down, I offer food. If someone is sick, I offer food. If you're lying on the side of the road someday, bleeding badly after having been ejected to the windshield of a car, right after applying a tourniquet or perhaps during, I will try to serve you a little pound cake. with maybe some strawberries. There's nothing I can do about this, any more than the rest of you can. It's hardwired. Cousins, would please confirm this to Stacy, so she'll have some patience with me someday when I try to make her some chicken broth with a little pastina while the world is coming to an end. In our house, there was always the cookie jar. Actually, there was the concept of the cookie jar. A cookie jar is wholly inadequate to cover the grandeur and majesty of the Santa's workshop type of dessert production and storage facility that was our house. Mom spent 6 months gearing up for Christmas, baking cookies, torts, bars, candies, Italian pastries, the likes of which we will never see again. There were special folding tables brought out of the basement just for processing the dozens of types she made, which would then be given out as gifts to teachers, postmen, and family members. The remainder was meant to last us through the year. Of course, I couldn't let that happen. I like to think that I gained 10 or 15 IQ points just from learning to defeat Mom's security precautions. When the cookie jars became the cookie safe, I learned to crack a safe. When they were locked in the freezer, I developed a talent for breaking into the freezer and a taste for frozen cookies. When she took the desperate measure of actually counting the brownies and the snack bars in each Tupperware container, I developed the strategy of not stealing whole cookies, but just slicing some off the edges of each of the bars. The numbers remained the same, and my mother was stuck trying to figure out why they were shrinking. She finally blamed the freezer and upped production in response. I believe my dad was never prouder of me than at this, my cookie thieving zenith. Of course, he got a cut for not tipping her off. Through all the years after, when I would visit Mom, I'd raid the cookie jar. It was sort of an anchor to home, just like the same way that Mom was an anchor to home. In later years, when she could no longer bake, we'd bring cookies for the cookie jar, just for the express purpose of having them there to steal. We could always get cookies at home, if we wanted them, but it wasn't the same. Plus, just as with us today, Mom needed to have something to offer her guests. It's a physical compulsion. Eventually, she had to stop living on her own because it wasn't safe anymore. She would sometimes see people that weren't there, and of course she'd try to feed them. We had to unplug the stove after she tried to make oatmeal for one of them. Any one of us would have done the same. Even when she was in the nursing home, we would bring her cookies and candy and stock her drawers. She seldom ate any, but it gave her something to offer guests besides the stuff on her tray. And as I had for all the years, I would sit down and smile conspiratorially at her while I snuck a few. Last week, as she was failing, I noticed that the last candy box was getting down to the end. It was a box of Belgian chocolate pralines, something she's loved since I brought some home from her from Europe a few years ago. Saturday, after she'd become unresponsive, we visited, and I realized there was perhaps one more visit's worth left in the box. And I took this as a sign. I figured, Sunday night I'm going to visit. I'm going to finish the candy, and that's going to be it. I was actually surprised then when she passed that afternoon, before I got there, as if I couldn't believe she'd go without those pralines being accounted for by a final visit. At any rate, that's what I was thinking as I sat with her, waiting for the funeral home people to come. And then I noticed I was absent-mindedly finishing off that last praline. Okay, it's not a grandfather's clock suddenly stopping at the moment of its owner's death. All things considered, it's better. I think my mom would have been pleased. And again, thank you all for coming to help celebrate her life. Another thing Stacy has pointed out to me is that my mother lived to 93, which is a goodly age, and that there are many who would give a lot to have had that much time with their parents. That's something we will always treasure and something to celebrate. Now, this particular eulogy would not be complete were I not to point out that there are still cookies and snacks upstairs. Please make sure you've partaken to the point where you'll regret it tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that's what Mom would want. Thank you.
Thank you.